Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with a update on the meta snapshot for Warhammer 40k Warpforge. Alright, so if you recall, I've just got it up here on screen. Back on the 19th of May when we last did a snapshot, this is what the tier list looked like, this is what the meta was. And there's been a bit of an update since then. We've had the Sisters of Battle join the fray, or the Adeptus Sororitas, and we had a buff patch as well for them. And so how do I see things as of right now? Well, I actually think that it looks a little bit something like this. So we've definitely got some winners in this update, and I've kind of illustrated that with the little green arrows. But I want to start down in tier 4 very quickly. I won't spend too long on these, but unfortunately, even with the buffs, the warlords for sisters are, well, let's say Erica and Junith are struggling a little bit. Junith is particularly bad. Junith is probably the worst warlord right now in the game, and she has an ability that is just quite useless and too slow, quite frankly. Bumping out a battle sister that has to that doesn't have particularly good stats, that has to survive a turn, then it has to not attack and pray, survive another turn in order to generate a faith point. It's just too slow. It's just asking too much. So Junith is bottom of the heap. Now the rest of the tier 4 warlords, you can build good decks around them, guys. It's not to say, and that's a testament to where the game is. Where the game is right now, it's one of the best times to be playing Warpforge, one of the best metas we've had. Nearly every warlord has a viable deck, right? So when you talk about Zagstruck or Zandrek or Orkz, you can build some fantastic decks. And if you look on my channel, I've got some pretty good deck guides for all of these warlords. I would say that Erica is a really cool warlord. It's actually one of my favorite warlords, but it's just the sisters themselves still need a little bit of work, and so I would say that she's still probably in the tier 4, definitely better than Junith, but I'm not sure I'm able to give her a credible tier 3. Now moving up to tier 3. The big kind of winner so far is Anvir. I think I had Anvir quite near the bottom of tier 4 last time. And what I was, the reason why Anvir's gone up is that I was quite shocked when the stats came out from Warpforge, from EG themselves, because actually Anvir had a much more impressive win rate than I realised. And then I sort of it kind of clicked that actually Galen and Zephyrblade both have good win rates, and it was more a reflection that I think the Eldar faction, when you talk about their top 30 cards, they're still very powerful. So perhaps I was kind of like, I don't know, underplaying Anvir a little bit. So I've actually gone out there and found a deck that made it into the top 50, so I'm going to share that with you guys in a minute. I do think that obviously Onvar from the nerfs has kind of fallen from grace. At one point was top of tier 1, but I think I might have had Onvar down in tier 4 as well. I think Onvar's still pretty good, it's just a lot slower, and I think towards the top of tier 3 we've got some faster decks in Tigerius and the Terror of Vardengast, who can both put out pretty good aggro decks. So yeah, this was the kind of no Infinity Circuit Anvir deck. Kind of interesting, actually. Really making use of the buffs that the Witchblade Warlocks got, and actually dropping the 5-drop flankers, which is kind of interesting, right? Because what you're trying to do here is not spend the stones because you don't have the Infinity Circuit. You want to kind of you want to try and acquire the stones through playing your Warlord power and through your dead units, so that you can just reclaim the stars without having the tempo loss of playing Infinity Circuit. So kind of interesting, quite like that. And then there's quite a lot of units in that kind of like 4-drop space, so you're going to be getting those for 0 when you play Reclaim, giving you really good value from your Reclaim the Stars. not a lot of kind of like 2-drops, for example, and stuff, so really cashing in on that value. So yeah, like I said, this deck made it into the top 50. I've not tried it too much myself yet, but I definitely want to try it, because I like Anvir's playstyle, and that is quite a nice one for you to try. Alright, so up into tier 2. Now we do have Morven, and I think Morven is quite a powerful warlord, and with a few buffs to the sisters, she could be a highly competitive warlord. She is definitely a deck that I think you can climb into the top 50 with at the minute, and she has some really nice control options with the Penitent style deck. If you want to kind of see more on how Morven plays, then I highly recommend my Penitent control video guide. In addition, the Ecclesiarch has a guide as well on Morven, and both of those guides kind of go through, they kind of got some similarities and a few differences, but they both really show off the control nature of Morven. In addition, in tier 2, I think that the Tau we were pulling on the Tau a little bit because of the nerfs, but actually Onvar got hit the hardest, and the drone spam got hit the hardest, which was under that kind of Onvar style and the Storm of Fire to win the game. But actually, the Shadow Sun Battlesuit deck didn't really receive any nerfs, and it's a very powerful mid-range deck. So right now, I think Shadow Sun is a solid choice. It's a really good tier 2, and you know, you're gonna have games where you don't draw your dynamic offensive and you kind of fall behind early and it doesn't quite pan out, but when that deck's battle plan goes off, it's very powerful. Now, in addition, I've another one that shot up the ranks this month is the Tervigon. Tervigon was down in tier 4, and I think everyone was thinking that the Tervigon was terrible. Tervigon was, since the nerfs, was just down and out. But that was until Putis, who managed to get to rank 1 on ladder with Tervigon, and was playing this highly successful. I did a 12-hour stream, and Putis came on. He demonstrated the deck for us. Go back and check that out on my VODs. That's on Twitch or on YouTube. And we were just smashing everything. Like, we won like 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row, no problem. They weren't even close games. So I'm going to show you that Tervigon deck in a minute, but that was highly surprising. And so I had to promote Tervigon somewhat in this snapshot from tier 4 up to somewhere near the top of tier 2. Still a little bit inconsistent, can be beat down by the faster decks, but my goodness, like, if you want to talk about a powerful combo deck, Tervigon is right up there with the strongest of the combo decks. And also similarly, I want to draw attention to Omesos. Omesos is again perhaps the most powerful of the Tau decks right now, because Omesos can just play a very vanilla tempo deck, doesn't rely on any fancy tricks, isn't particularly hurt by any of the nerfs that have just happened, and just so happens to be that kind of tempo player that Omesos can put out is actually very competitive right now in the current meta. It does very well against the other meta decks, so it's a very solid deck to climb with. It's also not a particularly big brain deck. It's like play my 3-drop on 3, play my 4-drop on 4. There's a few tactics around it, but yeah, Omesos is pretty good right now. And again, I've got a recent deck guide out for this. I've got this deck from Shrigma Mail, and definitely worth going and checking out. Okay, so I'm going to show a couple of these decks in a minute, but we'll just talk about the tier 1. I think Gordrang is still a real problem, like for the sisters, just dominates that matchup massively, can beat down the other Orkz. You know, it's the ability to kind of just put big damage on the opponent's warlord and stun. It means that Gordrang can still play. It's a very weird deck because it can play like control tools like the Armor Up and the Will of Gork and things like that, and at the same time just keep beating you down, so it can kind of take an aggro approach, but it's got control tools when it needs it. Imatech is a highly refined control deck and it's very powerful right now. The only thing holding Imatech back is that some of the other meta decks are kind of tailored a little bit to beat it down, like the Swarm Lord, even Shadow Sun when it goes off. Those kind of mid-range beefy units, certain Abaddon builds, etc. But you know, if Imatech gets the right cards, does its thing control-wise, it's one of the most powerful control decks in the game. Now, Marneus Calgar's still at tier 1 because Calgar has multiple ways of playing. You can play a sort of slightly vehicle-heavy build. You can play like a big guard version, like I've done before, or you can do like a faster-paced kind of Codex build, which is probably the most powerful of the Calgar decks, really making use of the buff to Inspired Zeal. And when that deck goes off, it's like a super tempo, really fast deck. And then we got the Abaddon deck, which I've also promoted. This was in tier 2 last season, and it went up to tier 1 because the top 2 players, rank 1 and 2 on ladder last season, at the end of last season, both ran Abaddon. So I've got that deck for you to show you, and it's definitely a tier 1 Warlord right now. And last but not least, we've got the Swarmlord. So let's just have a look at a couple of deck examples from those top 2. We already talked about the Anvir. So this is the rank 1 Tervagon that Putis was running. Very powerful. As I say, there are some insane things you can do, like when Neuro Tyrant's down, being able to then play Overwhelming Swarm and then get another Overwhelming Swarm, basically making your entire hand free to play and just pump out like 5 or 6 ginormous units. Oh my god, the combo is real, guys. It's like, anyone who used to play Miracle Rogue in Hearthstone, this is the deck for you, my friends. This is the deck for you. So super powerful, but of course it can be beat down a bit earlier if you don't, if you don't draw the tools that you need to survive the early game. Then this is the Tempo Mesos deck that I was telling you about. I think this deck is very good right now. Very nice curve. It's got really annoying things for your opponent to deal with, like the stealth drones, the stealth suits, the Firesight Marksman having stealth, the Greater Good, meaning you can't attack because you can put that on the Warlord. So it's a tempo deck that really disrupts your opponent's tempo, and for that reason I think this is a super powerful climber right now. This is Barrick's Imatech control, and one of the things I really like is this little addition of the Night Scythe. Night Scythe is a really nice tempo card, and I think that's really important when you're playing the control Imatech, is that sometimes it can just fall behind on tempo and get beaten down. So adding something in here that gives you a bit of a tool for that is pretty good as well. And yeah, I actually really like that. And also, this is a pretty refined deck now. You know, he's got the Oberon in, he's kind of worked out how many 1-drops, how many 2-drops, just the one strategist, for example, for flexibility. And I think this deck is a really refined, probably the best Imatech control deck you can play right now. Talked about the Marneus Calgar super fast Codex build. This is it, guys. This is I think a super kind of fast tempo deck, and as I say, it can get crazy with the Codex Disciplines in there and the Avenging Zeal. When you draw things in the right order here, this deck can just go off in a way like few others. And then the big climber in tier 1 in this snapshot is Buggy's Aggro Abaddon deck. So as I say, Buggy managed to come rank 1 with this deck. So if you're wondering, is this really a tier 1 deck, BJ? Well, there's the evidence. Here's a guy who climbed to the very top of the ladder with it. So yes, it's tier 1. It's a fantastically powerful deck. It plays on curve with stats that are potentially unmatched, really. I mean, obviously when Swarmlord gets things like the stratagems off on the Synapse creatures, it can, I guess, technically get bigger units, but just dropping a unit on curve, I don't think anything beats Abaddon right now. So this is a very powerful tempo deck. And so there you go, guys. As of the 13th of June, that is where I think the meta snapshot is right now. Let me know in the comments if you've got any thoughts on what I've said today, anything that you think you disagree with, or anything you think I've missed. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for all your support, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.